to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse. Husker Nation brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, CarrikerChronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes nightmares, but it's just science either way. And I've got a legend on the phone with me, but before we bring him on, if you're like me, and at this point, you just be happy if Nebraska beat Wisconsin or Iowa, doesn't really matter. Obviously, we'd love to beat both, but you just want to get to a bowl game, smash that like button. And as always, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content we're putting out here on the Carriker Chronicles. Last Sunday night, interviewed the GOAT, Tom Osborne, chatted with him about a whole plethora of things, and right before he flew out for his heart procedure. Last night, spoke with Dawson Merritt, and Dawson had some interesting things to say. He says there's two more huge gets, two more commitments, possible flips that are going to be coming to Nebraska in the near future. But now I'm joined by a longtime assistant coach, a Husker legend. He was an assistant coach for 23 years, defensive coordinator for 18 years with Nebraska, three-time national champion, Mr. Charlie McBride. How you doing, my friend?
Good. I'm doing good. I'm recovering, but I'm doing good. And you tell, I don't know exactly what I had, but it was bad. But anyway, I feel good, a lot better.
I'm glad you're feeling better. I know we chatted a little bit last week, and obviously you've had some time, and I'm glad you're feeling better and much recovered. And thank you for taking the time to join us. Now, I got to admit, I've got the hardest hitting question right out the gate. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. The last time Nebraska was the national champion was 1997, as you know. Nebraska was a Coke campus and switched to Pepsi the following year. It has been all downhill from there. Everything that's happened since 97, is it because we turned our backs on Coke and we're now a Pepsi campus? Is that the problem? Is it not the Pelini curse, the Solich curse? It's the Pepsi curse. Is that the problem?
Well, it could be. It could be that. It would change from vodka to whiskey. I don't know.
Well, that was the better answer than I was even expecting. All right, let's get to a serious question, because Nebraska's defense of the three units, offense, defense, special teams, is by far our best unit of the three. Overall, they played pretty well. Had a pick six versus USC on Saturday. Recovered a fumble at the Trojans' 16-yard line. Set up a field goal for the offense. But for whatever reason, when the chips are down or in the biggest of moments, if you think back to USC, you think back to Ohio State, you think to UCLA, you think back to Illinois at times, okay, they've given up drives and points and even long 80-yard touchdown drives in those key moments. What do you think is the key to them stepping up bigger in the biggest of moments?
Well, the thing I was frustrated at the first part, and then finally I started studying some of the players a little bit, and then who's starting and who's not. And in some cases, there's offensively probably a little more than anything else. There's, I think, around 7 players that came in here through the portal. Mm-hmm. And you know, sometimes I know I have to think back when our coach got fired. And of course, right at the time when you're all gassed up, you're going to untransfer here, I'm transferring there. And 4 or 5 of us got together and said, you know what, we're crazy. We're going to win the Big 8 championship, and we're going to go on. And we did. And it was just a matter of the loyalty to each other. There's something missing. And it is really important that, you know, you have a bunch of guys that really want to win and really, you know, support each other. And I don't know about some of the numerous substitution has kind of confused me a little bit at times. You know, a back may be in there one play. I understand in pro ball, they understand that. But in college, I know all the backs used to tell me, you know, you go back to Rogers and some of those guys, they like to be in the game and get the feel of the tempo of the game and get the feel of the speed of it and get the feel of the speed of the defense and things like that. And that's really important. And so, some of these things, they're different. I think they're different for some players, and they're confused a little bit. They not knowing really that they're confused, but it happens that, you get a guy I watched in the Pro Bowl the other day, and he got put in for one play, and sure enough, he pulled a hamstring, and he wasn't really ready to play, but you got to be ready to play all the time. It just happened that, that was one experience that I saw recently, that it showed you what can happen to somebody, and the injury factor is really important. The other thing is the NCAA has ruined their game. And I could go through a list of things, but it'd take forever. But one of the things is we don't get to teach as much as we used to. You get meetings and things like that, but the physical part of it, the upfront stuff, the guys, especially in both lines, offense and defensive line, they need work. And I mean, it doesn't have to be live all the time, but there's still got to be some physical part of it in about every drill you do. And some guys get heated in some drills and do them a little harder than others, and it works out. We've done that, and my philosophy has always been a coach for depth. Mm-hmm. In other words, if you go back to our last 2 years now, in 99 we were second in the nation final poll, or third in one, and second in the other. And that may have been the best defense we had. And I'm not a statistics guy, okay? If you want to know how many times we were in the top 10 or top 15, we were there a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
And we had teams that had minus rushing and things like that. I mean, so, there's thousands of things that meet into this thing. And like I said, against all of these teams, including SC, maybe there's guys there that don't even know somebody's first name in the playing realm of it. I've experienced that, and you have to teach them to go to each other. And one of the things I tried to teach is the ability to just say, I don't understand. Young people are afraid to stand up in front of other people and and they think they're stupid, okay? And the idea is that if they all understand that there's going to be people like that and help each other, that's what happens. That's what comes out of it. But you have to do that in your meeting time, and you have to acknowledge it, because every kid is as different as his face. And, and it's the same thing with teaching. They learn different. And blackboard, coaches wearing out blackboards now, they're wearing out grease boards. Mm-hmm. And some kids don't even, that doesn't even move them. They have to see. Maybe it's a playbook. Maybe it's a film. Maybe it's walkthroughs. Maybe it's private meetings. There's all kinds of different ways, and you're going to have to find out each one of those guys. And unless you see them a length of time, that really you don't get to everybody. And you kind of have some guys that understand what you're talking about, and some guys that don't want to say that I'm not sure about this. The thing that's bad is I think and I thought means you don't know. Mm-hmm. That's, and when a kid says, well, I thought it was, then he's wrong. And if you could teach them that is what that means, they don't use it. So there's so many variables. It's just crazy.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And you alluded to the transfer portal and getting to know people and new guys here and there. The transfer portal can absolutely be a blessing. Depending on how it's handled, it can be a challenge. I got to ask you about this November. Coach Rule hasn't won a game in November in Nebraska. Nebraska hasn't won one in 2 years. All right, Matt Rule's 0-6 in November. Nebraska's 5-24 in November in the last 7 seasons. Because the first 3.5 games of this year, we looked like one team until about halftime of Illinois, and it hasn't quite been the same. How do you ensure that your team keeps getting better, developing, improving, and you're playing your best ball in November? The games to remember are played in November. How do you do that as a coach?
Well, I think you have to have your regular some kind of rotation in so that at least you're too deep. Your two best players are playing, and then you create competition. And during that competition, those kids, one guy will get down, the other guy's ready to to rip, you see, and that's, nobody believes that. But, I've seen it happen. I've seen a guy that doesn't feel good. I had a kid one time that just lost his farm, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he was on the field in a game, and he started thinking about it, he started crying. Because after the game was over, he had to go sign some papers for the farm. So there's so many dumb things that you don't look at, but the more you know about a kid, and then that's where you can express your goodwill toward a kid and your positive attitude, especially at game time and stuff like that. It's really important, and that you do it to all of them. And I think some of it is the possible loss we had was we didn't want to lose. That was a thing, was always hung over our head. We can't lose because we got 10 wins and we can go to 11. We go to a great bowl. I thought back and I just looked at bowl games. I was in 12 Orange Bowls, 12, and that's how many. And in each time we had 6 losses at one time, and that's like in late year, and you think, geez, we had so much practice, we ought to be really good. And sometimes we're no different than if we didn't practice a week. That's the hard thing. Problem that we do have is how a player is treated. You got to be careful what you're saying to them and everything else. But like I said, I rotated them every 2 series or tried to. Some guys you got to leave in, some guys you don't. But that rotation helped us a lot because they were both equal players. I said one day in the depth chart, I said, okay, Barnett, you let Pensick go on this time, right? He said, no, we talked about it. I'm going to start. That's what it was. And they were both the same. They both played the same. That's the kind of relationship. But that came from your freshman year. That came from when you came here. And then when you see a freshman go over and eat with a sophomore or a junior, usually the seniors are all, different, but you've got something going then, that they kind of hang out together because that's the only place you're going to get to see them, off the field, except in meetings and everything.
Well, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors real quick. So shout out to DPS Concrete Construction. As always, ladies and gentlemen, you can check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Concrete work, retaining wall work, these are the experts. These are the folks to have that type of work done. If this is your line of work and you're looking for a place of employment, a great boss to work for, Jason Armstrong is that guy. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, bonzelpool.com. Now, the weather outside isn't exactly conducive for a pool, but here's the deal. If you're looking to have one put in, you got to get in line now because they fill up fast. If you want to have one ready for next spring, next summer, go to bonzelpool.com. The same thing with the hot tub, sauna. If you have these things and you need them taken care of, Jeff Bonzel and his crew are the people to get it done. Check them out at bonzelpool.com. All right, so overall, the defense has played well. It's a top 15 defense. Need to step up in these big moments, and I think that's about the one big thing I can really think of that could really help this defense. The secondary, though, they've given up some big plays. They've had some miscommunications in the secondary at time. As a D coordinator, how do you make sure, like there was a play versus SC where the 2 safeties were running 2 different coverages, and obviously that's a problem. They give up a big play. How do you make sure the communication on the back end of the secondary is simpatico? They're on the same page, so they aren't giving up these big pass plays like we've seen throughout the course of the season this year for Nebraska.
Okay, well, I'll give you a simple example. Let's say we call the cover 1 or 2, 0, or whatever you want. We're running a blitz, okay? And it's middle blitz. And we have the lane is, they know the sets, they know different stuff, okay? Then we have 8 different ways to run that blitz without messing with the secondary. So they're going to be in the same thing every time. We disguised our coverages, and they were good at it. As they get the more they played, the more they could do that. And we disguised it so that it looked like something else, like cover 2 or something, 2, rotate it to 3 deep, all kinds of strange things. And we fooled our linebackers and moved them into the line of scrimmage and did not take them out of there until the ball was snapped. And that's the hard part. It looks simple, but it's really hard. You've got to learn your read on the way going back to your area, and you've got to play the run, and so on and so forth. So, that's what we did. Sometimes we had our defense, everybody knew what we were running. I know it sounds like you're really stupid, Coach. But everybody, I assume, we were vanilla to ourselves, but we had changes in it that didn't screw around with the secondary as much. In fact, we even eliminated all of our calls in the secondary. For every check, there's a mistake. So you can write that down. I mean, it's experience, that part.
Yeah.
And we tried to do it by changing the fronts, by changing these guys in the play, and that's just what we did. We had. I mean, if I had a blackboard or anything, I could show people that the defense was our best run defense. It was supposed to be our best pass defense, and that's how smart we are. One year it was, and we had our end out wider 9, outside the end of a yard sometimes, and at the end of the year, we turn around and look at it, and that was our best defense. It wasn't like playing on head up or outside shoulder or 16th or whatever. And so those are some of the things that we did to try to establish a secondary that could really play. And we you have to talk to George, but we didn't have many coverages. And we had a pro coach coaching at LSU. I can't remember his name, but he was a long-time pro coach. He told me after the game, you disguise your stuff better than they do in pro ball. And that's what really we beat them, and because of that.
It's interesting you bring up George Darlington, Coach Darlington, who was here for over 30 years. He's actually the guy who recruited me. I saw him at practice randomly the other day. I hadn't seen him for like 4 or 5 years. I know you're not a big stats guy. I've got a few here for the fine folks at home. Nebraska's been pretty good at getting after the quarterback for the most part this year. Unfortunately, against SC, they had 1 sack and 36 dropbacks, 2.8% sack rate, which was unfortunately their lowest of the season. And the defense was trending in the direction of like the 09 to 10 unit with 18 straight games of holding a team to 6.0 yards per play or less. USC gained 6.6 yards per play, the 4th straight opponent to go over 6 yards a play. And it's crazy because Cosgrove, Pelini, Banker, Chinander, and Diaco, Mr. The Strain is Real, none of their defenses had 4 straight games in a season that allowed more than 6 yards per play. A streak of 4 games hasn't even occurred crossing over seasons since 2004. Most of that's come to the big pass plays. So they, like you said, you don't want to mess with the secondary too much, and they got to get on the same page in that secondary. I want to ask you one more question about kind of close games. Okay, when you think about close games since 2018, Nebraska's lost more one-score games than anybody else. We know this, 34. It feels like we're watching the same movie over and over, just with different actors. But when it comes to single-digit score type games, single-digit type games since 2018, Frost was 5-22, Rules 2-9 so far. The Huskers are 7-31 in single-digit games since 2018. How do they get over the hump? Because we're right there, game after game, week after week, with the exception of one game this year. Like, we're right there. How do we find a way to get one more point on the scoreboard than the other team? Just one time to start with. How do we do that, Coach?
Well, I tell you what, I heard guys that came from the players. I remember when Mumford, we were playing, and this was against LSU. He said, I'm going to go pick one this time. I know what they're doing. He's dropping I told him he'd drop 3 yards deeper, and they're going to throw right into the hash mark. Right, he's going to go wreck it. And he does. He goes, mm-hmm. And I was, I didn't know. I thought, well, that's pretty good.
That's all coaching, right?
The kids themselves believe in themselves, and they believe, I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to turn over. And guys that are defensive linemen, say, for example, when the ball's thrown, so I've seen guys that they'll watch the ball. There might be an interception, and if you get down, you can block, or if it's a fumble, you might recover the fumble. So, well, if you're not there, how are you going to find out, And so every opportunity you have at that time to get that ball, to see it, when my eyeballs, and I'm telling you, you peel those eyes right on that football when you're tackling, and when it means something, you even focus harder. And we have to get this done. I remember we had one linebacker, and I'm telling you, he couldn't catch the ball if I handed it to him. And he came up with 2 interceptions.
Nice.
And that thing was, it was bouncing off his chest. It was bouncing all over the place. He's the guy that won the game for us. And our offense was sputtering and things. But he came up with it, did it, and he came up with the plays. And there were guys that were leaders, came up with it, and they would tell him, let's get, they'd be talking about it on the sideline. Let's rip it out of it, and do something. But I don't know if we're that far along.
I mean, it's interesting because you even look at the offense. I've talked about the defense a little bit. You look at the offense since from 2018 up until now. Okay, Nebraska's had 36 potential game-tying or game-winning drives where the offense had the ball in their hands. Okay, 17 different opponents. Those drives resulted in 1 win. Okay, that was versus Northwestern. Let me see what year that was. 2019, it was 10-10. We ended up kicking a game-winning field goal. But 17 different opponents, 14 turnovers, 10 quarterbacks, and 1 win during that time frame. So we got to kind of get that figured out a little bit. I want to put this picture up on the screen of the fans. I thought this was fake at the USC Coliseum, but it was put out by the Huskers account. The Husker fans basically took over the Coliseum way more than Trojan fans. I thought it was fake at first, but it was put out by the Huskers. So I thought I'd show you.
Let me just mention this. On offense, Tom mentioned after one game we played, and I was walking with him, and he said, we audibled 60% of our plays at that game. I about fell out. I didn't, I know we audibled a couple times, but I didn't know that we, had that kind of sophistication. That's what he said we did. He was astounded, that they did that. But that's, and some teams don't even have an audible system.
Last question I got for you here. Most folks know this, but Wisconsin has fired their offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, after 2 years. So if you think about it, heading into this game, we're actually a 2-point favorite at home. I was surprised. We were a 1-point favorite, and I was surprised, and now it's gone up to 2 points that we're favored to be over Wisconsin at home this Saturday. But Wisconsin's fired their offensive coordinator. Their starting quarterback is out for the season. They haven't scored more than 1 touchdown in a game on over a month, and they're on a 3-game losing streak. Then also you look at beyond that, Iowa quarterback Brendan Sullivan, who has started the last 2 games for the Hawkeyes, is expected to miss the rest of the regular season due to an ankle injury. Cade McNamara was struggling. Now this guy is out. So you look at these last 2 games. What do you think the chances are Nebraska wins? 1 game, 2 games, or 0 games? And how big is a bowl game to you, in your opinion?
Well, before I already stuck my foot in my mouth, but I'm going to believe it. We're going to win 2 games. The light is going to go on, and it's going to be an explosion. I'm telling you. But I mean, I have that feeling. I had that feeling after one. I said, we're going to win our last 2 out of 3 games if we don't win 3 out of 3. But we passed that stage, but it still was 2 out of 3, and that's what I really believe.
All right, we will see what happens. That ball's shaped funny. It eventually has to bounce our direction, maybe? No, I don't know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got some question for you fine folks at home. As always, let me know your answer in the comments below. The first one, Coke or Pepsi? I just simply want to know. Coke or Pepsi, ladies and gentlemen. Number 2, what grade would you give the defense so far this year? A, B, C, what would you give? Don't give it below that. That'd be ridiculous. Number 3, the offense gets all the publicity 90% of the time. It's one of the reasons I wanted to bring Coach McBride. He's a legend on the shows to talk about the defense as well. But what's the biggest thing the defense needs to do in order to help Nebraska beat Wisconsin on Saturday? And Coach, are you ready to say throw the bones with me, Coach?
So yeah, I throw them in the morning when I get up.
I love that. All right, until next time, go big red, and always remember to brush your teeth and
throw the bones.
That's awesome.